I am appropriately named now Karen Keith. I'm the executive director a public library, and I am over the questions to Susan O'Byrne, and I copied her bio and I highlighted stuff, but she's such a good storyteller that I thought I would just ask Susan to tell us a little bit about herself, and especially how she got into writing, and then we'll talk about some of her books. So take it away.
Okay, so how I got into writing. Well, I always wanted to write. I always wanted to be a writer. And then I started reading a lot. And that's what stopped me, because I got so intimidated by really good writing. When I was in high school, you start reading Dickens and you're like, well, I can't do that. You start reading Shakespeare and you're like, well, I can never match that. And so I was intimidated into not writing. And I said, okay, I won't write, but I'll read everything on earth. And so and that was when I decided I was going to become an English professor, and went on, I went on to a PhD program and tried that out for a little bit and became a Shakespearean. But the seed was always there, and I've always loved to write. But again, like I said, it was, who calls it the anxiety of influence? I can't remember. It's a critic, the anxiety of influence, that, because there are great writers out there, you feel like you can't do anything. And that was me. Now, fast forward 30 plus years, and in 2018, and Carl is going to laugh about this because he knows he's involved in community theater. I had been auditioning for a bunch of plays, and I kept getting knocked out. I couldn't get cast in anything. And at the last audition, I said to myself, okay, if I don't get cast in this play, I don't even remember what it was offhand. If I don't get cast in this play, it's a sign that I'm not going to do anything for the next few months. I got to start a project. What the hell, I'll write a book. And that's how it happened, because I got dumped from whatever show that was. Like I said, I can't even remember. And I said, okay, I'm going to start writing. And at that time, I had been reading a lot of, well, not a lot, but the books by Elizabeth Strout, whom I worship. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do a collection of related, sort of related short stories that have a connecting element. And that was what my first book was. It was kind of about a small town, like it was basically Hinsdale. It was about a small town. I thought I was being so coy when I wrote it. I call it, a suburb near the city in the Midwest, and it's affluent. I'm like, okay, I don't even call it Hinsdale, but so yeah, it takes place with different people in that town, and that was how that came up. The second one, well, gee, what happened this last year that I had some free time. Well, not free time, well, free time, but weird time, weird home time. And I wanted to get out of, I just wanted to get out of where I was. And the idea of the road trip, kind of got to me. And we're lucky enough to have a home in Scottsdale, and the kids and I and the dog took a road trip over the summer to Scottsdale. And while I'm driving, I'm like, this is a great idea for something. And, that's how that got going. But yeah, a few years ago, I would never have had the guts to do this. I was way too insecure and way too self-conscious. And I'm like, well, like you read Elizabeth Strout, and she is a goddess among writers. Her words just flow over you like I can't even describe it, the beauty. And I said, gosh, I can never be her, but I can do it. I can give it a shot, and I can do my own little story, because and that's the thing about Elizabeth Strout. If you haven't read Olive Kitteridge is nobody special. She's nobody important. She's an annoying, opinionated, ornery old gal. There's nothing, she does nothing fabulous. She's no Sky O'Malley. She doesn't, she's no jet setter. And, but that's what beautiful writing, I mean, her work, it's like, that's what beautiful writing is about, when you can take the absolutely, utterly mundane and ordinary and turn it into something. I mean, at least Elizabeth Strout turns it into something beautiful. I try to turn it into something that approximates something that might be someday construed as slightly not almost as good as her. But yeah, I'm so glad that I got over my myself, my self-doubt and whatnot. Because it's so awful that I never wrote when I was in my 20s. God knows enough wacky things were happening, but yeah, it's nice to have that kind of self-assurance that you can write without being scared of putting it out there. I mean, you can write, but putting it out there is another barrier you have to get through. And
well, so talk about your decision to self-publish. Talk about like what you wanted to happen with your first collection, what routes you might have pursued before you got here, what that's been like.
Okay, well, Coffee Spoons was really, I mean, I hate the expression, but it was sort of a vanity project. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I'll have like a little gift to give my parents. I'll show it, I'll give it to a couple friends, and it'll just be like, oh, look, she wrote a book. How about that? And it was just going to be this, oh, look at you, and so I had no, I have no patience to deal with trying to shop things now. That's the better route, I suppose, to take, is to shop around and find a publisher. But, self-publishing is so easy, and Amazon makes it so by God easy. It's, you just go on to Kindle Direct Publishing and they walk you through it. They give you the formatting and they tell you what you need to do, and everything is fantastic. So what started as, a little cute gift, it'll be like an actual book by a real person, became, something that I'm actually really proud of. And I can, because seriously, you look back at stuff you write, like you look back at old papers you wrote in high school or college, and you're like, holy crap, I'm mortified. I should be killed. But most of this I actually think is, somewhat okay. So, that's a huge deal for me. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not mortified when I open the pages. Yeah. And incredibly, a bunch of people actually bought the By God thing. And that's, it's fantastic. And again, I'm not going for sales. This was never about selling a book. This was about telling a story, or telling a bunch of stories, and how people can be so connected in a small town, which inexplicably I called Whistler instead of Hinsdale, because I was trying, like I said, I was trying to be coy and not name it Hinsdale. But because everything is so connected in this town that the person that's walking the dog in the park is actually the friend of the gal whose husband might be having an affair. And that guy knows the person who so there's always, you can jump from person to person, and there's always a relationship. And that's, I think, what's special about Hinsdale, that because of the smallness of the town, just the very, by virtue of our smallness, you can just you can touch everybody in this town in a way. And so that's what that first book was about. The second one came out of a whole different place, and that's for sure. The second one I started planning, but pretty much immediately after I wrote this, because, why not? And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to delve into one person, one family, and just go through their story rather than jumping around to several disparate families. And that's what it grew out of. And now I'm totally just rambling off at the mouth, and I'll let you ask questions. I don't know if that is even on the path that you wanted to go on.
Yeah, no. I wanted to interrupt you 1,000 times, not because you're
I
talking so
know,
much, but
because
because I want to comment
I
on
can't
every single
stop
thing you're
talking.
saying.
It's terrible. Oh my goodness. Okay.
No, one, I want to mention that you were a Hinsdale boomerang. You were actually a native who went off to college and lived in the city and did all the things, and then came back, and you're raising your family back in Hinsdale now.
Is it a boomerang? Is that a term?
Yeah.
I never knew that. Okay, I'm a born again Hinsdalean. Yes, there's that. Yeah, but yeah, born in the sand. I was actually, okay, little factoid. I was the first child born when it was called the Hinsdale Sand. I was the first child that was let to actually stay with her parent, her mother, overnight, because back in the 60s they didn't do that. They had the kids thing. So I was the first mom that got to co-sleep with her baby, or the first baby that got to co-sleep with her mom. Back in 1966. So there, that's my little claim to fame. But yeah, so I actually had a thing against Hinsdale for years. I had a big chip on my shoulder about this town, probably for the same reasons I love it now. You know, it's so small and everybody knows each other and everybody knows each other's business. You know, and so we went away. But yeah, found a family. My husband is from the north side, and he grew up in Highland Park, and so once we were like, we're leaving the city, the battle was on. Like, okay, are we going north shore? Are we going west side? Okay, I won. So we lived in Downers Grove for a couple of years, and this is so pathetic, but it's so true. I started looking at it was time for our oldest child to start school, and I started looking at the school ratings, and I'm like, oh my God, look at Hinsdale. I never knew this is Hinsdale. Oh my God. Okay, honey, we're moving back to my hometown. Sorry. Yeah. So that's, yeah. And it's weird because I was never like a social butterfly. And I mean, I'm not now either, but I mean, I was not a social butterfly. So it's not like I'm coming back to this world of friends and, all these folks that I'm reconnecting with. But you remember people and you see people, like, even if you're not friends with them, it's like there's familiar faces all over the place, and it's wacky. But yeah, it's been a great decision, and yeah, it's we're here 10 years now, so I guess it's 32 years total for me. Yeah, that's interesting.
So for someone who hasn't read your novel, can you tell us a little bit about Kansas, She Said?
Yes. Okay. Kansas, She Said is the story of Ruby Larch, and Ruby is. I'm. This will be a shock to no one, I'm sure. And Ruby is a woman a lot like me. There is a lot of autobiography in here, but loads and loads of stuff is built on. This is not my story. This is Ruby's story, but she's a lot like me. She lives in Hinsdale. She. A woman who is trying to come to terms with her life, and she is exactly my age, 54. But my point is that Ruby goes on a journey, and her journey is both a physical journey going from her hometown in Hinsdale to Paradise Valley. She goes 1,400 miles to Arizona, and is and goes back to see her parents who live there. And goes through a visit with them, because it's not really a fight with her husband. It's more of she can't really deal with him and the issues he's going through, and is not able to support him the way he needs, and just can't deal, and says, I can't deal. I'm just going. I'm going. I've had enough. And I think that I'm probably speaking for several other people at this time, but as of June of 2020, I had enough, and I had to, I had to get out of my house, and I had to get physically somewhere else. And, it was this metaphor of the journey, and taking a road trip was huge. So we took this physical road trip, and that was the mind-blowing experience. I can't tell you. When I was a kid, my dad traveled constantly, and we went on road trips all the time when I was a kid. Every spring break, we would drive all the way to New Orleans and back. Every summer, we would drive to Florida and back, and then to Colorado and back. We'd do these long road trips, and it was like it was every summer for years and years and years. And every spring we didn't do, winters, winters we would go up to Rhineland or Wisconsin, you know, so it wasn't as much of a road trip, but this was what my family did. Okay, it was road trips. So I'm driving, you know, down through, like you're going back through Illinois and hitting the arches and the arch in St. Louis. And I'm like, I was like going back in time. I was going back into myself as a child, going on road trips, and my past just folded back into me. And because I was a big old goober when I was a kid, the main thing I remember about road trips was reading books. Because I was a big book reader, and I also was really nearsighted, and I couldn't see much when I was a kid. I couldn't see like the landscape, so I would just read. And so road trips are books are road trips, you know, and this whole thing just got folded into my head. And so I'm like, oh, well, I want to write something about a road trip where the memory of books comes into it. There's a part in Kansas, she said, where Ruby is driving through New Mexico, and she's looking at all these sand dunes, and she's like, oh wow, it's just like the Freeman and Paul Muad'Dib and the Sandworms, which is the Dune books by Frank Herbert that I read crazily when I was, you know, 12, 13 years old, because that's what it is. You know, you get the landscape of where you're going, and it just becomes your reality. And that's what I wanted in a little way for people to feel when they read it. Like, oh, when you drive, when you go to different places, you can feel enveloped by this place, and it can remind you of these worlds and these fantasies that you went through. When we went through then the mountains of northern Arizona, the pine forest, I'm like, oh my God, we're in the Hobbit. We are in Bilbo country, and we're going through the Misty Mountains. It was really the most amazing gift to have that trip where I was just brought back to my childhood and my books. And I was, yeah, and I'm like, I hope I can give someone who's reading this a kick out of reading, and or a kick out of thinking about books that they read when they were younger, and bring that whole thing back to their adult.
I'm going to tell you that happened to me today. So I'm finishing, you know, the last little bit of the book today. And so one of the questions that I had wanted to ask you was about the name Ruby. I love finding out why people name characters certain things. And so I've got that kind of in the back of my mind. And I get to page 145, and it says, oh, golly, Ruby said aloud, what am I doing here? And it just like, it jumps out at me because I've never heard her use words like golly or anything like that before. It starts a new paragraph, and it says, whenever Ruby dreamed of home. So we've got Ruby dreaming of home. Oh, golly. Kansas, she said, is the name of the star, is the lyric in Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yep.
And what I loved about that moment of realization is at first I felt very smug and smart, and then I felt very stupid because it wasn't until 145 till I got it.
Oh, no.
But it was so right, because it wasn't a need to get to that part in the book and be like, her journey is internal. It was so well done.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that.
You absolutely did what you wanted to do.
Oh my goodness! Thank you. Yeah,
You're welcome.
It's the journey. It's the Yellow Brick Road. It's you're dreaming of a faraway place, and what is it, Ruby? It's home all the time. Yeah, and you know what? Okay, I'm totally being honest, but Ruby slippers were not on my mind when I named Ruby. They were not. I mean, it's really cool that they are. I actually just really love the name Ruby. It was Ruthie at first, and then I'm like, you know what? It was just, okay, this is so stupid. But Ruthie, for those of you who watch Netflix, Ruthie is a character in Ozark. And I'm like, okay, seriously, all I could think of was Ruthie from Ozark. And I'm like, I can't do Ruth from Ozark because she's like this, it's like completely antithetical to Ruby, the character. But yeah, so the Ruby Slippers was just a wonderful happenstance that worked, because it just sounded like Ruthie, but it wasn't Ruthie.
Yeah.
And I just think the name is really cool and old fashioned and weird. It like Ruby Keeler from the 20s, you know, who was in, what was she in, 42nd Street, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Larch, the last name, Okay, this is a book nerd thing. Larch is because I had to put little homages in here to different books and authors that I like, because like I said, this whole thing is just a book folded in a book folded in a book. Larch is an homage to one of my absolute favorite living writers, John Irving, whose novel, The Cider House Rules, is perhaps one of my all-time favorites. I couldn't name it Wells after Homer Wells, who's the main character there. So it was after Wilbur Larch, Dr. Larch, who was the doctor at St. Cloud's orphanage in New Hampshire. So yeah, or Maine rather. So that was my homage to him. So yeah, Ruby Larch is both Dorothy and a weird John Irving character who's just very opinionated and I don't know. I'll just call him quirky for lack of a better word, but yeah, the journey thing. Thank you. That's so awesome. And I have to say that I probably am the only person I know that actually says golly, and I say it all the time. And like people make fun of me for that. So yeah.
Well, it fit perfectly. I don't want you to necessarily give away the ending because there probably aren't people who.
Oh yeah.
Have, but you mentioned it's this journey and she's left. Did you know when you started writing it whether or not she would go back?
No, I did not. I certainly did not. And I don't know actually what's going to happen. I mean, there's still a sense of unknowing that that still exists, I think, at the end of this book, where you don't, is there a momentary happiness? Is there a momentary, I think that not knowing is better. At first I wanted it to be, she leaves, there's, and it was going to be like there's an affair, and it's going to be this sort of grandiose shedding of all these horrible things that this woman has put upon. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just keep this. I mean, not that these aren't real, not that affairs and infidelities aren't real, but I wanted to keep it more at. Let's just make it like I was saying about Olive Kitteridge. Let's just make her normal. Let's just make her not normal. Let's make her absolutely uninspiring, absolutely just some person. That there's not going to be this, oh, she was wronged. It's not going to be some grand thing. It's just going to be her own effed up mind that messes with her, and because she is who she is, she decides to take this path. And that's why Ruby does what she does. But no, I had no idea where she was going to go and how it was going to work. I had thoughts then, again, book nerd, I had thoughts then during the summer that I was going to end the book with the word yes, because and again, my little homage to James Joyce, because me and James were like that. My little homage to James Joyce, because he ends Ulysses with that, and Ulysses is one of the most difficult, wonderful, glorious novels about absolutely stupid, mundane, ridiculous, meaningless things that the world has created into, oh, it's this universal, the most wonderful, but it's really not. It's just about some dude walking around Dublin and, thinking about going to the bathroom some of the time. I mean, there's really, it's absolutely ordinary. And I think that's what makes literature great, is that you can take the absolutely ordinary and turn it into art. And again, I'm not putting myself in James Joyce's or Elizabeth Strauss or anyone's footsteps, but that's what I'm trying to approximate, is taking the absolutely ordinary, the unimportant and the insignificant, the nobody special, the Olive Kitteridge, nobody's special. She's a pain in the ass. She's a jerk, and creating art out of that. Ruby is kind of a jerk, I think. I mean, that's it's nothing. A lot of her is me, so I'm not, self-denigrating, but she's selfish and she's being stupid about a lot of things, and she's not thinking things through, and she'll tell you about a lot of stupid mistakes she made in her past, and she's not thinking. And why not make that into art? I love the idea of taking the ordinary and putting it into a frame, putting it into giving it a shape, and like putting it on pages. And like I said, people like John Irving and Elizabeth Strout and Jessamine Ward. Holy crap, Jessamine Ward is the most amazing writer that I just discovered this past year. Taking the absolutely mundane, driving to visit someone, and making it into this extraordinary revelation of an experience. And why not share in that experience? Why not? I'm rambling again, aren't I? I'm sorry.
Well, and you do that really well in the in the scenes where you see Ruby as both a mother and a daughter. Way, reading the passages where Ruby is kind of stepping outside of herself to see herself looking at her daughter. And then that moment of realizing, shit, I'm that to my mom. I mean, it is humbling and heartbreaking when this person that you've had this tug, push and pull with your whole life, and you realize you're now completely in it. And you do it with just these little themes.
I'm that person. I'm the jerk. I'm the person that you roll your eyes at. I mean,
But you say that the mom can never be wrong. So you've got
the mom can never be wrong, but as a daughter, you're always wrong. So yeah, it just depends on where it's all perspective. It's all perspective. Yeah, the mom can never be wrong, but the daughter, is, well, but yeah, it's such a wonderful, it's not a difficult position. It's an extraordinary position as a parent when you realize that you have become something that you observed all your life on a certain level. We all know our mothers. We all observe our parents. And then when you hear and feel yourself saying the same things that were said to you as a child, it's, it takes you aback. And then when you see your child growing up into a young woman as you did, it's, oh, wow, wait, look at this. I remember what she's going through. I remember, those years, and oh, now I sort of understand oh, my poor mother. Oh, my poor mother dealing with it. She had 2 girls. So yeah, and we're only a year.
You know what it's like too? This is going to show my super nerdy English degree.
Oh, good.
It's kind of like at the beginning of Wizard of Oz when they go to the fortune teller, because you're seeing your kid about to maybe no.
Yeah.
Reading too much into it.
You're totally doing that. No, I get it. Yeah. No, the Wi-Fi stuttered for a second.
Sorry.
But yeah, you're looking in at yourself like from this weird perspective, and it's me. What is that cartoon where it's like we have seen the enemy and it is us? It's like, oh my God, that's really me. And yeah.
So is there a reason you made Sadie an only child, so that there would be just that singular relationship, or did that come about organically?
I have to get a drink of water. I'm so embarrassed. Sure. Hold on one second.
In about 5 or 10 minutes, we're going to turn it open for people to ask questions. But if you're shy or you're worried about forgetting something, just put it in chat and we'll go ahead and read it out loud on your behalf.
How embarrassing. Okay. Excuse me. This is what happens when you ramble on. You get dry mouth. I did the only child. I have 2 kids. I have a son and a daughter. And they are, okay, how's this for wacky? My son and my daughter are 14 months apart, which is what my sister and I are. So I'm like apparently following my mother in that respect. But okay, so the reason, well, actually, if anyone's ever read through Coffee Spoons and other stories, there's a story that deals with a son that is it's kind of emotionally gripping. Well, it was for me. It was one of those where it was tough to write. It's a very emotional story, and it was all about a son. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just with this one. It's going to be just a daughter. I'm gonna just switch to a daughter. If I have a son and a daughter, it's gonna be like, oh, there's Susan doing her son and her daughter, And if I do two, I'm like, okay, so I'll just do one daughter. And frankly, she's enough. She's more than enough. She is her own universe. So yeah, it's that was the reason for that.
So you referenced writing this book this summer. So you completed an entire novel.
Oh, it's not that long.
A novel in a summer. And it's now like printed and on our library shelves. So what is your process? How do you do this?
Well, to be fair, I did start taking notes and stuff. Okay, because ever since I started like this idea that, oh, I'm going to write, I start writing down like weird things or funny things that I'll see in the world. And okay, this just shows how limited my universe is, that like 90% of my material comes from like when I'm out walking the dog. Okay. But he's wonderful. He's my little basset hound. Okay. And he's the only one that lets me hug him anymore. So it's nice. But so I write things down. So I did have notes, something, but that weird bit about the smell of the lilacs that came to me last year, and it was like, oh, the smell of the lilacs just hit me one night, and it was I have to put this somewhere. I want it bonked me right back to college. I was back up in Appleton, and it was so wow. It was crazy. But so the process this summer, I started, actually, the first thing I wrote was going the chapter where they're in Amarillo, and going into she is in Amarillo and going into the barbecue place. And that was how I was going to start it. And then I'm like, I've changed around. Everything got changed around so much. I didn't start like, it was written chapters, discrete chapters. And then I did huge amounts of moving things around because I wanted to make sure that there was like an interesting arc to the story. I knew it wasn't going to be chronological. There was going to be back and forth because so much of this was based in memory and in memory and flashback. So it wasn't going to go that way. But so I sort of in Medias Res. But what I did was, it's really, really hot in Arizona in the summers. And when you walk a dog, I brought the dog. I brought my Ollie, and it gets really flippin' hot by like 7 a.m. So you walk your dog at 5 when the sun is just barely coming up. And so I'd walk my dog at 5, come back, and then I would just drink iced coffee and write. And before the kids, because there's hours before the kids would even wake up. And the sun's barely even up then, but I'm because it's really flipping hot. So he wanted to make sure that you got out there before the flipping hot stuff starts. It is, like I say, like you're opening the door to an oven and you're baking cookies and floof, that air hits you. 119 degrees is pretty impressive. But
now, do you set yourself a word limit, a time limit? Do you say I'm writing every day, whether I'm inspired or not?
Oh, I don't do a word limit, although I should, because those people do the NaNoWriMo, whatever, the November writing thing. I've got some friends that do that, and they're like, "Oh, I got 20,000 words today." I'm like, "Holy crap!" Oh my God. Some days are better than others, and some days, if I'm feeling like I have nothing to say, I'll go back and edit stuff that I've written. So I'll do that. But mostly it was like, okay, let's get going. And I mean, seriously, I was so caffeinated. I would have like these huge vats of iced coffee, and I was sitting at and it's kind of like where I am now, except that I was sitting at the dining table with my little laptop, and instead of water, I had coffee, and I would just sit there, and I'm like, okay, what was coming out at me? What do I remember? What was an impression? And stuff like going to the barbecue place in Amarillo and how weirdly flat Texas Panhandle is, which I had no memory of. It was absolutely a flat line. And just like writing about how weird that was, so I would just find an impression. Then as time went on, like after I had, say, 30, 40, 50 pages, I would try to shape it more and go back to it. The problem with shaping after I've written or after one has written is that it can go on forever. And
I was going to ask, how do you know when you're done?
I have no idea. I think with me, because I swear I could still be editing this bad boy forever. I got tired. I got tired, and I said, you know what? I like the shape of this right now. I like the arc of the story. I'm not, sorry, it's silly, but I'm not embarrassed by anything I've written. It feels true, and it feels right, and let's go with it. And so because I love to edit. I could edit I could take a sentence and play with it. I write every now and then. I write columns for the Hinsdalean. It's like every 6 weeks. It's 475 words. And, okay, so you can play with 475 words till the cows come home. I mean, you can it's just you go at it and add it and add it, and it's just constant rearranging. But of course, there's a timeline, so you have to get it in at a certain point. But I mean, it's fun. I love to edit. I love rewriting, and that's one thing my kids don't understand when they're doing stuff for school. I'm like, well, I've already written it. Like, what are you talking about? You wrote it once. No. Writing is rewriting. Okay, that's one thing my college professors instilled within me. Other than the fact that I was not emotionally mature enough to deal with profanity, but you got to rewrite. You've got to edit. It's wonderful to play with words. I swear to God, I'm such a dork that I can't think of anything more fun than playing with words at all. Maybe being on stage, which is also a hoot, but it's like there's no stage now, so what the heck? It's just wonderful to play with language. And
Are you familiar with the author?
I'm sorry.
Are you familiar with the author Philip Pullman? He wrote The Golden Compass.
I've never read those. I've not read those.
The audiobook, it is a full cast recording. It is one of the best things you will ever listen to in your entire life.
Oh, God.
I will hook you up with one from the library. As a performer, you will love it. It is amazing.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my commercial. But I saw him speak a couple of years ago, and he, authors who are on tour get asked the same questions every single night. And so one of the questions that people always ask him is, where do your ideas come from? And he said that his pat answer to that is now, I don't know where they come from, but I know where they go. They go to my desk, and if I am not there to receive them, they're gone. Oh, and that was the way that he disciplined himself to go sit and do the work every day, which I just thought was such a great way of thinking about what you do as a writer.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Golden Compass, I'm going to put it on reserve for you, and I'm going to get it to you. So speaking of community theater, someone asked, will there be a novel around community theater? It seems like fertile ground.
Oh, oh, it is such fertile ground. And that's funny because, but if you hear growling, my dog is under the table now. He woke up. I was going to, actually, that was my first thought before the whole road trip, before I decided that I was going to do this journey thing. It was going to be based, it was going to be a community theater book. That's so funny. So I would love to. I can't wait. Oh, it's there. Let me tell you this stuff. Oh, I've been doing community theater for, I'm not nearly as long as most people that I know, but well, since Nora was 6 months old, so 14 years. It's, oh, there's a lot. Oh yeah. Sorry. Oh, the types. Oh, the personalities, the drama.
Have you ever thought about
wonderful.
writing a script? Would you be interested in doing a script or doing other formats, or do you want to stick with prose?
Okay, well, gosh, okay, so 2018 fall, okay, there was this bit with the Westchester Community Theater where they did this they call it the 8x10 play festival, and they do 10-minute plays. And so they said, hey, submit your script for a 10-minute play. And I took some of the stories from Coffee Spoons and other stories, and I sort of made this kind of a pastiche of monologues of women talking that I have in this book, and I called it Other Stories because actually the Coffee Spoon story was not in there. And the actors were lovely. They were wonderful. They did a great job. I'm not sure if it was the best format, but I mean, but it was so cool to see people saying things that I wrote on stage. I was like, oh yeah, it's remarkable. I'm not sure. I think I need more practice at dramatic writing. Right now, I'm way more comfortable with prose. So I'd like to stick with that, but I mean, but seriously, community theater. Oh, anyone who's watching right now that does community, oh, Carl, yeah, it's, oh golly, yeah, oh golly, the personalities and the stories that you can get it's endless fodder for novels. I mean, Waiting for Guffman, nothing. Yeah, they've got nothing on us.
So people are rightly fascinated by you. Someone wants to know, where did you work as an English professor? For how long? What made you go get your law degree? Where did you practice law?
Ooh, all that good stuff. Okay.
Literally, we cannot get enough. Tell us about you.
Oh, I'm so fascinated. Okay, no, after I went to graduate school at the University of Notre Dame, and after I got my PhD, I was kept on as adjunct faculty there for a few years. I was not tenure tracked, but I was faculty in the English. I worked for the English department and for the Program of Liberal Studies, PLS, which was basically their version of a humanities program for sophomores and up. And so you taught, it was wonderful. Discussion-based courses on everything from the autobiography of Malcolm X to the poems of Adrienne Rich to it's just this wonderful spread of works. So I was there for a while, but like I said, I was not tenure track, which means I was working semester by semester with no benefits, and I was 30, so I said to myself, I wasn't getting a tenure track, but I would apply for tenure track positions. And if any of you know about the Modern Language Association and the wacky rigmarole one has to go through for academic jobs, what's those? I can't remember the guy's name that he wrote. Small World. David Lodge. David Lodge, Small World. He writes about academic conferences and the MLA, and it's hilarious. It's this weird world of glad handing everybody. But anyway, so I got discouraged and said, you know what, I'm not going to, I was working at the University of Notre Dame. I commuted from South Bend to the College of St. Francis in Joliet, which is not the University of St. Francis. Okay? I taught at IUSB, Indiana University of South Bend. I taught at St. Mary's College, all at that time, because I was grabbing as many one class that I get a class per semester that I could. So, I'm teaching, okay, I've got a class in Joliet on Tuesday, Thursday nights. I've got a class at St. Mary's Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 8 a.m. I've got my Notre Dame classes, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever. So it just got maddening and frustrating, and maybe I'm just weak. I really probably should have stuck it out, but whatever. I was probably very depressed as well. I'm sure I could do a great psychoanalytic study of myself. Anyway, I said, okay, and my parents, to their credit, were like, you need a change. You're going crazy. And so I said, oh, what the hell? I'll go to law school, which is really probably not the way to enter law school, but because I took the LSATs dry. I mean, it was absurd. You should really, well, no, which is why I should have done a lot better than I did. But I went to DePaul Law School, and law school is really fun. I loved law school. Law school is, especially constitutional law, it's like analyzing literature. I mean, there's really not much different than studying literature when you're studying these gorgeous cases, this gorgeous case law that you can see the connections between the appellate court and the civil court. So it's wonderful. The practice of law is an entirely different thing. It's not nearly as sexy. It's not nearly as interesting. But I did practice law for, where did I practice law? I practiced law at, it used to be Rudnick and Wolf, then it became Piper Rudnick, now it's DLA Piper or something. So it's a big international law firm. And I first started in the IT law department, where you did, what do you call it? Software licenses. But then 9/11 and the tech bubble boom burst. And so that work dried up. So I became a litigator. I'm like, okay, I'll change. And litigation was actually perfect for me because I taught for so many years. When you litigate, you're just up there talking, and you're like, okay, Your Honor, please the court. So you're out there pontificating and foaming at the mouth like I'm doing now, just kind of saying stuff and writing briefs, which was actually fun. I like writing briefs, but so then, I was practicing law for a while, and they pay. Teaching English does not pay. They throw money at you when you're a lawyer. It's ridiculous. It blew my mind. I was so used to being, seriously, I was used to being so flippin' broke for years and years and years. I hope you can't hear my dog. He's going under the table. So once I got married and we started a family, litigation, and there are people who are superhuman, and there are women who are unbelievably incredible attorneys and so much better than I am, because I am a weak person. There's no way I could litigate and do a family, because it was so many. I would get to the office, at 6:45 and leave at 9:30. I mean, I couldn't do that with a family. And so I was able to not have to work. And so I became that which I made fun of all my life. Okay, would you please? Oh my God, this is what happens when you Zoom from home. You have a dog chewing on your legs. So I became a stay-at-home mom, and then I moved to my hometown, which is even wackier. And it's like, oh, Susan, you're back home. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's just weird. It's weird. And I've become my mother in a way. Oh, actually, that would be wonderful. So yes, that would be wonderful.
That was a nice save. Well done.
Exactly.
People also want to know if you have things that you've written and just not published yet, or what are you working on now?
Oh gosh, no. I'm so sorry if you can hear this stupid dog.
Do you want me to get my 7-year-old to parade around without a shirt on and make you feel better? Because that happens all the time at my house.
That would be fantastic, actually. Yeah. Shush. I have not published, and I have not, I don't, no, I haven't written anything that I've not published in these recent years. I mean, like I used to write in journals and crap like that, you know, for years and years, but nothing that I was like, oh, this is going to be, you know, a book. So I've got notes. Now I'm not working on anything currently, but like I said, I'm always taking notes on people. Like, you know, I'll go with my girlfriends and we'll say, you know, we'll not go out, but you know, just meet in the park because, you know, 2020. Yeah, they'll tell you a funny story. I'm like, oh my God, can I write that down? Can I write that down? Because that's an awesome story. I like picking from my local friends because they have unbelievably wacky stories. You know, so yeah, and they're all true and it's wonderful. I love I would love to do like a tell-all book, but I just don't have the sass in me, you know. It would be fun to do that sort of thing, but also I'm not that connected. Like I'm not that cool. Oh, he's actually chewing on me. I'm going to get a dog treat. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to lure my dog
This will be
away.
my last call for people to send in questions or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Do you want to be unmuted, Kristen? I didn't know if you were just moving or if you were raising your hand.
I can't believe I just did that. Okay.
Okay. Carl and Kristen, you should be allowed to unmute yourselves.
Unmute yourselves.
Unmute us.
After you.
Hi, honey.
All right, Kristen, go ahead.
Okay, so Susan, I love you. I'm so excited to be here tonight and hear you talk about this. So, I mean, you're so humble because not only did Coffee Spoons come out, but you also then starred in a play and taught Shakespeare at the community house, all pretty much at the same time. And then you recently did, or more recently did another, you know, I'm tying this back to community theater with Becky got her car. Did Becky's I say that right?
Car.
Yeah, new car for Becky. So, which Steph and I went to go visit, you know, saw, and it was just absolutely wonderful. So how does your acting, even though if it's not really put in the book that the person's an act, like how does your acting influence your writing, or does it?
Oh, gee, I hadn't thought about that, but okay, just truly, I'm so glad you mentioned Becky because I think that a lot of Kansas, she said, was influenced by Becky's New Car. Becky's New Car, for the uninitiated, or for those who missed the incredibly awesome show.
It really was an incredibly awesome show.
Oh, really? No, it was a lovely performance, production. But it's about a woman who is questioning her own life, and so there's a lot that and yeah, so there's a lot of parallels, I think, between the themes of Becky's New Car and Kansas, she said, in terms of that. But with acting, I don't know, Kristen. I think that what it's done is mostly in terms of getting out of my self-consciousness. Yeah. Because it was always so, I mean, like I said, it's just, I would never have even dreamed of doing this. And since I started doing theater, which was when Nora was a baby, I started doing it, and it's just very liberating. It's very, you can't be a self-conscious person. Well, okay, you can't be a completely self-conscious person and be on stage. You have to, you have to throw it out there at some point. And so I think that kind of attitude of letting it all out helps me then translate that into saying, okay, I'm just going to put down things that happen in my life that are embarrassing, that are silly, that are, not flattering to me. I'll put it all out there, and that will be something that I can contend with on the page. Yeah. So I hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
That's really
cool. There is a connection.
Thank you.
Thank you. My goodness, I haven't taught this much in 9 months. I'm going to have.
Harold, do you want to jump in?
Oh, so I have a comment and a question. So I know you were mentioning how you wanted to keep her just down to earth, not, extraordinary, just an ordinary person, which, I mean, as you're reading it, that's what you connect to. I mean, that's not like, oh, this person is like so transcendent from my life. I have no idea what that's like. And, and by the way, that chapter on the cat trouble, come on. That was really heartrending. So, anyway, but, I know you were getting out of town, and I don't know the timeline. I know you say take notes, but did you find that this came to be because of your trip while you were there, or how much did this transform into what this is because of your trip? Because obviously there's a trip in here, and you're on a trip, and the sites and travels, and you said it prompted things from your childhood.
Oh, yeah. Okay. By the way, first of all, everyone, this is the director of Becky's new car, Mr.
Oh,
Cohen.
yay!
Okay.
It was so wonderful.
He is amazing. Okay. This guy is incredible, and he writes plays. Okay. So,
Thank you.
Funny thing. Okay. So I'm driving, and, I'm driving all the way down, and I don't do road trips. Okay. I don't drive for lengthy periods of time. And I'm driving, and after like 3 days of driving, when you're clutching a steering wheel, you get a callus by your wedding ring. And it's just I'm like, there's a metaphor there, I'm like, I'm gonna do something with this. This is just too, like, it's a great symbol. I'm like, I gotta think. So it sort of came up when I was driving. I'm like, I gotta do something with this. I've gotta do something with someone who's driving, who's that something that's going to connect with marriage, that it's going to connect with these feelings of dead skin, of what I mean, of the symbolism of that. So yeah, it totally. I was going to write something, but then once we started driving, I'm like, it's the journey, it's the trip, it's the folding into your past, it's all that. So yeah, the trip just did it. It was when Becky got on that car and just drove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was when she just drove.
No, there's a funny story about Becky. So I know of Susan, or I've met her here or there, but not before she auditioned. Actually, you contact me, you asked about the auditions.
Yep.
So she comes out, and that's, you got to have the right actor for that part, but so she auditions, and we had a little powwow after, and so it was like 9:30 or so. I called her, and I know she had the dog, and so I was just talking, hey, how's it going? How's your dog? And she said, oh, and he's great. He's doing great. And then she's just like, in the same sense, like, you're offering me this part, aren't you? And then, and we had a big laugh about that. And then she's like, well, she didn't say golly then, but she used another word, but people off the phone could hear it. So it was great. So that was special. And, we worked on those monologues, just,
oh my
rehearsals.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. I mean, I can't imagine, that play or my life without that play, but, without you being in that part. So I'm glad that you weren't taking your hiatus for that role.
No. Oh gosh. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was holy shit was what I screamed. I screamed holy shit repeatedly. So yeah, because I was so excited. Yay. Yeah.
Well, Susan is part of another very, very special class, and that is the group of authors that we have in our Hinsdale Voices collection at the library. If you've lived in Hinsdale for a while, you know that we have Susan Bluebird Cason, we have Christina Enriquez, we have Jack Fredrickson. Like, we have a lot of really talented voices for such a little town. So we've put them all in their own collection. If you know of other people who are authors, please bring them to our attention so we can celebrate them. We love connecting people with books. So Susan, to wrap this up, I want to put you on the spot. We've gotten to talk about some of your favorite books just because this book is a discovery and celebration of so many of them.
I'm sorry, so tell you my favorite books?
Who are,
Ooh,
and there's somebody you to introduce people to. Your favorite books, any
my
of them.
favorite books. Okay, I actually wrote down a couple books because I was like, I'm gonna forget, I'm gonna not think about it. I just finished The Overstory, and who wrote that? Richard Power. The Overstory is it's a weird book, but it's about trees. Anyway, so it's a wonderful, wonderful book. But you know what? Okay, I was getting really, really stressed in the fall, right, in the weeks going up towards the election, and I found that I couldn't read serious type, like high-minded literary fiction, that kind of stuff. I'm like, I have to read supernatural and science fiction. And so I've discovered Stephen King's son. Now I adore, and I've read literally everything by Stephen King because I've worshiped him since I was 12. But his son, Joe Hill, is, I think he's like, he's a little younger than me, but so he's an author in his own right. And I read so much. I've read everything that he's written except for his graphic novels, because I don't like graphic novels, but it's not that, I'm just not into them. So I discovered Joe Hill and his weird supernatural stuff, and I just ate him up. I've everything he's written. Let's see. Oh, I'm currently reading Gary Steingart's The Russian Debutantes. What is the Russian Debutantes Handbook? No, Gary Steingart is a fantastic, fantastic writer. And I've read everything else by him, which is wonderful. His memoir, Little Failure, super sad love story. I'm going to blank out on everything else he's written, but he's literally everything he's written is fantastic. But his very first novel, his breakout novel that made his name, was The Russian Debutantes Handbook. And when I was still working at Piper Rudnick and flying to California for 5 days a week and coming back on the red eye, I left that book on the plane. I was reading it in 2003, and I left it on a plane and never finished it. And I'm like, oh my God, read it. So yeah, so I'm starting that again. And he's wonderful. He's so funny. Oh my goodness, he's so funny. But for other science fiction stuff, I was weirdly wandering around Barnes and Noble about a month ago and I never go to science fiction and fantasy there because I'm like this weird snob, like, oh, it's only Frank Herbert and Tolkien. I don't know any of the modern authors. And I just randomly picked up a book because I thought the cover was cool. And it was called Dead Man in a Ditch. And it's like a fantasy book, but written in the like film noir style. And it's the coolest thing. There's 2 books. It's this guy, he's an Australian author. He's also an actor, go figure. He was in a series called Black Sails, which I've not seen. But holy cow, it's this breathtaking fun, because I could not read anything like for 2 months prior to the election. I could not read anything that was serious. I had to read something that was not in this world. I had to read stuff with elves and fairies and ghosts and zombies and wacky stuff, because I could not concentrate. I could not get into it. Some books where you're like getting into the language and you just want to roll through the language. This was I couldn't do that. So that was a really fun author that I discovered. So his name, I think Luke Arnold is his name. And those books are super fun. I'd never heard of this guy. It's not it's not Elizabeth Strout, but good stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm reading. Who else do I love? I love David Mitchell. I love anything. I worship the ground Elizabeth Strout walks on. I wait with bated breath for anything Kate Atkinson will ever write. She is a goddess. David Mitchell, I just read Utopia Avenue earlier this year. He is a beautiful, beautiful writer. Everything is it's lovely stuff. I could seriously keep going on authors like for several years, so you probably don't want me to. Who else? Louise Erdrich. Louise Erdrich writes stories about First Nation Native American people in the upper Midwest, and she is one of my new favorite authors. I try to find everything she writes. It's a beautiful lyric. It's like reading poetry. Her stories are, actually they're kind of, they're similar to Elizabeth Strout, where you'll have a chapter. A lot of times she'll have a chapter by one character, and then a different character will take the story on. But I just read the Night Watchman which is her most recent book, but she's written loads and loads of books. And pretty much every one of them is gorgeous. So she's a lovely writer. I'm trying to discover more female writers. When I was young, I only read classic writers, which meant you only read the writers that were considered classics were male writers, usually of the 19th century. And so I read I read Dickens novels like crazy. And one of my favorite authors is also John Steinbeck. So those are my favorites, but you know, I'm trying to see what voices we can get from women, and women of color. Jessamine Ward is unbelievably gorgeous writing. It's lyrical. It's like music, sad music, but it's beautiful. So again, Karen, I'm foaming at the mouth here. Okay, so. That's what I'm reading now, and those are writers that I love. And I don't know what to say now. That's it. But yeah, Joe Hill, really good. Ooh, Stephen King's son, but he not all of it is great, but it's pretty fun. What else?
No, I love that book Horns.
You read Horns? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't think I would like that book because it started out like with this bad feeling, right? You know, it's like, oh, he's done bad things. And I'm like, the book was making me feel bad. And then I'm like, oh, this is fun. And he was having fun with it. It became actually, because you read the back, it says darkly comic. And I'm like, this isn't funny. But then it became funny. And so, yeah, that totally switched me. My mom even loved Horns. So yeah, which was amazing.
You're like your mother.
I'm turning, yes, well, she's turning into me or something. Yeah, it's a whole weird world now.
All right, so to wrap up, is there any advice that you would give to anyone who joined us tonight because they want to be like you too, and they want to be a writer?
Well, no one can be me, really. I'm kidding. Yeah, okay. Seriously, this is going to sound stupid, but I was told once upon a time, look, there's nothing special about writers. Writers are just people who write. If you write, you're a writer. Okay, there's no demystify it. You know, there's nothing special. It's like in Ratatouille, anyone can cook, but yeah, writers are just people who write. If you write, you're a writer, and never, ever think that your voice isn't important, because unimportant little voices are what make the greatest art, or can make the greatest art. We'll put it that way. I think unimportant voices, no one's special. Nobody special is Oliver Twist, right? You know, think about it. Yeah, he's nobody special.
Right. I'm not going to let anybody else say anything else, because like this is just like the perfect little capstone to this conversation. So thank you so much for
thank you. This has been a hoot.
All of you. This was really a lovely little community that we had here tonight, and it was so special to get to share this conversation with all of you. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Karen. Great job moderating.
Thank you.